We just had major news come down the wire. $450 million is going to be used to replenish the anchor yield reserve. Now, we're also going to discuss what does that mean for Luna. Is it going to go up? Is it going to go down? And we're also going to discuss two things that I found fairly peculiar during the course of this whole development. But for starters, welcome to Crypto Saver. Now, I have to start by plugging this video over here, which I did about a week ago, and it discussed the current situation of the anchor reserves and the fact that the anchor reserves are being depleted at a very quick rate, and that by the second week of February, we would no longer be able to rely on taking any sort of money out of the yield reserve since it would be at zero. And if we look right now on the charts, we can see that if the yield reserve were to be zero right now, Anchor would only be able to pay a 9.5% interest rate as opposed to that 19.5% interest rate that we're all used to. Now, one of the things that we discussed in that video is that Terraform Labs will come in and save the day, which they have. So how did this happen? Well, it began with a proposal that was posted on the Terra Money forum. And this proposal was submitted by N3MO. And we're going to briefly go over this. So the number one thing to take from this in the title, he's asking that Terraform Labs ends up replenishing the yield reserves by 450 million. He goes on to say that in Anchor's current state, it may appear that its deposit yields are unsustainable. However, in the mid-long term, Anchor has future plans for vast improvements in its mechanics. The refinement process takes time, and we believe having a sufficient yield reserve to continue scaling UST's growth to newcomers and inspire existing users' confidence will benefit all stakeholders. So again, very similar to the same argument I had in my prior video, basically saying that TFL should come in and they should save the day, give us more time for Anchor version 2 to come out, give us more time for there to be more incentives for people to borrow and for Anchor to slowly become more sustainable at a higher interest rate. And we're hearing the same argument right now being put forth in this proposal. As we go further into the proposal, he says right here, based on his base model, week 6, which would be the second week of February, the yield reserve would run out, but if we plug in 436 million, that would give us up to week 47, which is when he believes that all of a sudden Anchor will be positive when it comes to how much it collects and how much it pays out. And as a reminder here, as he also points out, that last year in July, we did see Terraform Labs replenish a yield reserve of $70 million because we were in the same situation. Every single day that yield reserve was getting closer and closer to zero. At one point, it got down to 1 million before Terraform Labs came in, saved the day, and they threw in 70 million. So from July up till now in February, that was all fine and dandy. We did have some periods of time when Anchor was running well and they actually were contributing towards the yield reserve. But for the past month and a half now, 2 months or so, we've just kind of been drawing away from it. And we're currently dealing with a yield reserve that only has about $11 million in it. Now, the very next day, after this proposal was submitted, we saw Kwon, the founder of Terraform Labs, contribute to the section. He ends up saying, "Thanks for putting this together. I've put this in front of the LFG board for a vote. I will update when the board has reached its decision." So for those of you that are unaware, LFG is the Luna Foundation Guard. And what is that? What is the Luna Foundation Guard? Well, let's bring up their website real quick here. The LFG is primarily focused on Terra. Terra is a decentralized open source public blockchain built to support a suite of fiat-pegged algorithmic stable coins. Primarily, this includes UST. So to better explain the relationship here, we have TFL, right? Terraform Labs. About a month ago or so, they ended up creating the Luna Foundation Guard. They also ended up funding the Luna Foundation Guard with money from TFL's pocket. And now Luna Guard is supposed to be there to help promote the decentralization and also support UST. And in this case, the money is not coming from TFL like it did last time with that 70 million. This time it's coming from the Luna Foundation Guard. Granted, again, the money that LFG has is the money that did come from TFL. We also saw an interesting question here, which is, what is the total value of Luna Foundation Guard? And Kwon ends up responding 50 million Luna. Now, 50 million Luna at the current price of $55 per Luna is about $2.7 billion. So out of that $2.7 billion, 450 right now is going to be used to replenish the yield reserve. And then earlier today, on February 10th, Kwon ends up saying, the LFG board has approved the resolution to capitalize the Anchor yield reserve by $450 million UST. To do this, LFG will withdraw 9.5 Luna on February 11th, swap it to UST over the course of 5 to 10 days, which should result in 450 UST being minted. Now, there's some confusion as to what that would actually do to the price of Luna. So some people think, well, some people were believing that they're going to take their Luna and just swap it for UST, which would crash the price of Luna. But that's not going to happen. Some people think that, wait a minute, if they're going to be minting all that UST, Luna should skyrocket in value because that Luna is going to disappear. It's going to get burnt. That's also not going to happen. And why is that the case? Well, we have to first understand, why would Luna typically go up in value when UST is being minted? So typically, if UST trades above $1, so above the peg, people that want to take advantage of that, what they will do, well, usually it's the bots that are doing this, they're going to quickly buy Luna off the market, from one of the liquidity pools, let's say. They will take that Luna, they will then burn it for UST, and then they will take that UST and they will sell it. And because they got that UST, that one UST for $1, and if UST is right now selling for $1 and a penny, well, they basically can profit a penny off that little transaction there, right? But notice what happened here. It required them buying Luna, right? So that's buying pressure. But in this case, the LFG organization, they're not buying the Luna. They already own this Luna. They're simply taking that Luna and they are burning it for UST. And the way it's typically done, if you look right here on Terra Station, I have Luna set up over here. I have UST set up over here. If I would select this, I'd receive this much UST. If I would use TerraSwap or if I use Astroport, sure, I would use one of the liquidity pools. In doing so, and since I am selling my Luna in this case for UST, I would influence the price of Luna. But if I were to select market, now all of a sudden you're using that mint and burn mechanism that exists. If I were to do it this way, I would end up burning this Luna for minting this UST. So there's not really going to be an uptick in Luna price or a downtick in Luna price when they end up doing this. Now you can say, well, there's still going to be less Luna overall, and sure, but that Luna is being taken out of the non-circulating supply. So there's also a tough argument to make as to how much can that really affect the price, because in most cases, the price of Luna that is being affected, it's the one that's part of the circulating supply. Now, either way, I'm really happy to see this because I did truly think that either the TFL team or LFG really has to come in and replenish the yield reserves, because Anchor is very important to Terra, and we need to keep promoting a high interest rate on Anchor if we want to see further adoption of UST and people entering the Terra ecosystem. Now, let's talk about the two things that I found pretty strange in one way or another. The first one probably doesn't mean too much. So we know that about 2 weeks ago, Do1 had a poll on Twitter asking people how much should the yield reserve be replenished by, and everyone voted for 300 million. Now, after that, you really haven't heard much from Do1 whatsoever when it came to that yield reserve. Like, is it going to be replenished or not? People were guessing, I was guessing, you probably were guessing. But then, all of a sudden, we have this proposal that is being put forth on Terra Money Forum by N3MO, and the very next day, Do1 appears on the forum. He says that he's going to put this to a vote, and then the very next day, the vote is approved, and then we have all this information that now the yield reserve is going to be replenished. And what's interesting, again, is the person that put that proposal forward, N3MO, he does work for Hashed. And if we go over to Hashed over here, and we click over to their website, and on the website, if we do scroll all the way to the bottom, we do have a picture here of Do1 at the bottom here, and just a little info of him and his partner that started Terra. And I mean, it's obvious that obviously Hashed is, pretty closely connected to Terraform Labs, or at the very least that they have a good relationship. So what I'm trying to say here is I think TFL kind of realized that the optics might not look that great if they're the ones kind of putting their foot forward first and replenishing that yield, because you could imagine all the little news articles that would come out about that. So instead, maybe they have their buddies out at Hashed put this proposal forward instead and make it seem like it's coming from the community, and then they'll put it to a vote and so forth. Again, this may not mean so much, but this is something that just kind of, caught my interest when I first looked at it. Now, this next thing is a bit more alarming. So let's look at this tweet thread that was going on yesterday, or the last few days. So it says right here that the Anchor Protocol B Luna collateral that 50% of the total of the 3.3 billion Luna collateral. So again, people are giving B Luna as collateral to borrow UST from Anchor, right? So they're also paying interest there, and that's kind of helping Anchor being able to pay the depositors. So that 3.3 billion of that belongs to 4 borrowers, all private wallets. There are 25,500 borrowers, but 25,100 of them account for only 18% of the total. And here's a graphic basically saying that the top 4 here account for that 50% mark. And another chart to go along with it here. So this is the amount of wallets here. So as we looked at, basically by the time you get to the 5th wallet, you're almost looking at the 50% here, just as the tweet said. So I guess the first thing that should come to your mind here is that, wow, like 50% of all the B Luna that is locked up in Anchor is coming from 4 to 5 people. I mean, that's crazy. That does kind of show that there's a bit of centralization risk there, at least in terms of like how much yield Anchor is collecting if just so few people control so much of the collateral located within Anchor. And I suppose what made it even a bit more interesting is that when someone brought up one of the wallets of those whales, this person was borrowing $400 million through Anchor, and 416 million of that is just sitting in his wallet. It's just sitting there. So he's paying like a 20% interest or so, while not even using that UST. Now, someone that's extremely cynical can look at this and say that, well, maybe it's people from the TFL team, their own private wallets, and this is a way to also help subsidize Anchor. You know, that, listen, if they weren't around, then Anchor would be collecting half of the interest that they are collecting today. So, you know, the TFL team might be putting some private wallets and borrowing some UST through Anchor to help prop up how much interest Anchor is collecting. I get it. That you could say that's a conspiracy theory, but that's something that I'm just kind of bringing up to you, because even if that doesn't really matter, I guess what kind of matters is the fact that 4 or 5 people control so much of the collateral within Anchor. But either way, looking past that, I'm still happy that the proposal did go through, that the yield reserve was replenished. Now we have 1 full year, I would have to say, maybe until like November or so, to really see, you know, this gives Anchor an opportunity to actually get the version 2 out, to go cross-chain, to get more B assets onto their platform, to grow their borrowers, especially after we just saw that 4 or 5 people control so much of the borrowing side. So we definitely need to have a more serious push on that side if we want to see a high sustainable rate from Anchor moving forward. Now, if you enjoyed this quick little recap on the situation, I would appreciate a thumbs up. If you're interested in more Terra-related content, you could subscribe. It's free of charge, and so is my Discord, by the way. You can join in the description. If you have any questions, any complaints about me, just let me know in the comments below. I answer basically every single comment. Other than that, thank you for listening and have a great day.